Hello, everyone. Today, in this lecture, I'm going to talk about one of the famous plays of Greek, Antigone, written by Sophocles. We all know that Sophocles is one of the greatest playwrights of Greek in the ancient times, like our Kalidasa in India. Sophocles was the greatest playwrights of Greek. And he wrote a number of plays, and we all know that the very great writer and critic, whom we call as the father of criticism, Aristotle, wrote about tragedy, quoting examples from Greek writers like Sophocles. Sophocles is remembered for his great works which have become models in classical literature. Let us understand the significance of Sophocles' play Antigone. In the beginning, we can also talk about Sophocles and how he contributed greatly to the world drama. Sophocles was a great Greek playwright of 5th century, and it is said that he wrote more than 120 plays. However, we are not able to get all the 120 plays, and only 7 of his great plays survived. And among these 7 plays are Ajax, Antigone, Women of Trachis, Oedipus Rex, Electra, Philoctetes, and Oedipus at Colonus are available. The major plays of Sophocles deal with the complex themes of fate, morality, and human emotion. They showcase his innovative approach to character development and dramatic structure. And as we know, Antigone is one of the best tragedies written by Sophocles in 5th century BC. The play in question, Antigone, because whenever we talk about tragedy, we should know what tragedy is. Aristotle makes it very clear in his book Poetics. Tragedy is a serious play, and obviously it is written in the best of the languages, and it should create catharsis. At the same time, tragedy ends in the death of a major character, particularly the protagonist. So, keeping this in mind, let us understand how we can consider Antigone as a tragedy. Antigone, as you know, is one of the best plays written by Sophocles. And when it comes to the theme of Antigone, it deals with the theme of moral duty and state law, the conflict between individual moral duty and the state law. And the whole story is centered around the major character, Antigone, and her defiance of king's order. And when you read this play, we come to know that there are certain major characters in this play, and the major characters are Antigone, Creon, the king of Thebes, Ismene, the sister of Antigone, and Haemon, Antigone's lover. And the action of the take place, because when you look into any drama or novel, we need to look into the setting also. Where the play is set is important. The action of the play Antigone takes place in Thebes, which is an important Greek city, and it is set in front of Palace of Thebes. And the time, as we know, we should know the story of the Greek mythologies, particularly the story of King Oedipus. Because, before reading Antigone, we must have a minimum understanding of Oedipus. King Oedipus, because of the fate, he had to kill his father and marry his mother, and later, after realizing the mistake, he goes into exile. And as you know, he had these two sons particularly, and now they are fighting for the throne. So the play starts with this particular background, and and when Oedipus was in exile, his two sons, Eteocles and Polynices, fought a civil war over Thebes' throne. And as a result, they kill each other in the combat, and there are no successors. And this became one of the important opportunities for Creon. Creon is uncle of these two brothers, Eteocles and Polynices, and he becomes the king of Thebes in the absence of no ruler, and he becomes an autocrat in a way. In the meanwhile, he considers Eutychus as the person who is fighting for Thebes, and Polynices as a traitor who is fighting against the state. That is why he orders Eutychus to be honorably buried, while Polynices to be left unburied as he worked against the state and become a traitor. And it is the decree given by Creon, and his decree stated that anyone who buries Polynices will be executed. It is at this point the conflict begins. Antigone enters at this point because Antigone is the sister of both the dead brothers. She loves both of them. At the same time, she believes that every person, regardless of their actions in life, deserves a proper burial as a fundamental right, because no one becomes enemy after death. And after that, everyone should be given honorable burial. This is opposed by Creon, because Creon considers Polynices as the enemy of the state. The question here is whether to go with the state law or to follow the moral law. And Antigone believes in divine law, and she considers divine and moral law is higher than the human law set by the state. And she is simply, ready to support her brother, and she wanted to give a proper burial. Antigone decides to defy Creon's order and bury Polynices herself, although she knew that it is going to bring her a big punishment. It is an act of civil disobedience, which will have far-reaching consequences for herself and her family. Although she knew that the punishment is waiting for her, she does not care for that because for her, giving respect to the dead is equally important. In the meanwhile, Antigone's sister Ismene warns her and tells her not to go for this kind of act. She wanted to save her sister Antigone, but Antigone says she would not obey her uncle's order. And she is very, very firm and now decides to perform the burial rites for herself. It is at this point the conflict begins, the conflict between Antigone and Creon. It is the conflict between divine law, moral law, represented by Antigone, versus human law or political authority represented by Creon. On the one hand, Antigone speaks about the moral duty, the divine duty, because every god believes that after the death, he or she becomes nobody's enemy, and there should be a proper burial. Whereas the human law or the political authority considers still the dead person as the enemy. Antigone argues that gods demand burial rites, whereas Creon, the person who is very much egoistic or governed by the state law, says that law and order must be upheld. And in this case, Antigone does not listen to the state law and she buries her brother without caring for the orders of her uncle. It is at this point we come to know that Antigone offended the laws of the state, violated the laws of the state, and hence she is now guilty. And Antigone is arrested and she openly admits her act and she does not show any regret for what she has done. And she feels she is very, very right and doesn't beg for any pardon. And this made Creon very, very angry. And Creon sentences her to be sealed alive in a cave. That is the punishment given by Creon. And here comes Haman, her lover, her betrothed lover. She was engaged to Haman actually. He is Creon's son. Haman tries to persuade his father Creon, and he begged him to show mercy. Mercy is more important. While, he also gave him a warning that if you punish Antigone, people will not support you because people are sympathizing with Antigone. And it is better you should also look into this fact because people are more important for the state. But Creon does not listen to his son. He refuses to listen because he is governed by pride and stubbornness. In the meanwhile, Tiresias, the blind prophet, warns Creon. He said, gods are angry and the city will suffer if Antigone is not freed and Polynices is not buried properly. He told him that it is better to listen. In the meanwhile, of course, Creon was not ready to listen to Tiresias in the beginning, but gradually he understood the warning and could perceive the danger. He decides to, of course, follow the advice given by the blind prophet Tiresias and hurries to go and cancel the punishment given to Antigone. But it is too late. In the meanwhile, the arrested Antigone, who was in her cell, hanged herself before facing the punishment. And on seeing Antigone dead, Haman, her lover and son of Creon, commits suicide in grief. And as a result, again, the two deaths led to another death. Creon's wife, Eurydice, also kills herself. And here you can see the death of all the major characters, and Creon becomes very, very sad and sorrowful. He realizes his mistake and tragic flaw, but it was already late and the tragedy happened. He is left alive to suffer the guilt and loss. And the play ends with the death of major characters like Antigone, Haemon, and Eurydice. And this tragedy is caused by the absolute danger, the danger of absolute power and the pride which Creon exercises. Antigone has done no mistakes. She has to suffer because of her uncle. The pride of Creon leads to downfall, and wisdom comes through suffering here. Like many of the Greek tragedies, because fate plays a very important role in Greek tragedies. Unlike the tragedies of Shakespeare, Shakespeare's tragedies are character tragedies. In his plays, character is important. Character is destiny. Whereas in Greek tragedies, fate is destiny. It is not because of the fault of the major character or the protagonist suffers. Antigone has done no mistake. Antigone does not suffer from any moral flaw or a tragic flaw. It is Creon who suffers from this. Although Creon changes his mind at the end, it's too late. That's why we cry over the death of Antigone, the very hearty sister and the one who is ready to give her life for the sake of her brother, for the love of her brothers. The play can be, of course, seen in a different way. Her acts clearly shows that she is principled woman. She follows the principles of her heart. She follows the principles of morality. And at the same time, she is very, very defiant when it comes to, you know, uh, supporting or fighting for justice. She even defies state laws. She is loyal to her family and gods. And she represents moral courage. And finally, she proves to be a tragic heroine who dies for her beliefs. And the play can also be discussed in various contexts like gender roles, because Antigone is a girl. In a patriarchal society, she was not given any significance. And the element of fate is also discussed here. In case of Oedipus the Rex, we also see fate plays a very important role. And in case of Antigone also, fate plays the role here. So for all these reasons, of course, Antigone proves to be one of the best tragedies in Greek. and Sophocles' Antigone remains one of the best Greek plays till today. And I hope you understood what Antigone is, and we shall discuss about the major characters in the next lecture too. Until then, we can, of course, read the original text of Antigone and enjoy the best language and at the same time the thoughts of Sophocles. Thank you very much for listening.